We are live!
Yay! Hello, humans. How are you?
Okay, show me the things.
All right. This is Vanadium. She has Wombatitude.
I love her.
Thank you. Oh, I've got some light. Let's turn on the light. Whoa! There we go. Yes, and I got her down here so that I could use her to segue the background nicely into Chrome here, and if I have time, I'll also do the background on Manganese. Manganese is a hobbit, so this is fun.
Well, that's thematically appropriate,
right? I'm having an awesome time with this project. But
I'm so glad.
I'm having a hard time like asking people for assistance because 118 canvases is expensive and stuff. So I'll take this opportunity while I feel safe speaking to like our two audience members. Spread the word. I have a Patreon. Bite the paintbrush. $1 would help me. Make me feel all kinds of warm and fluffy, and I love you. Okay, let's read.
Okay, well, let me find where we are.
Yes.
It's been a week.
We were at the end of, not even at the end. We were still talking to AMR because I wouldn't shut up.
Well, I mean, the whole point of this is to not shut up.
Right.
And if people just wanted to read.
The conversation with AMR is such a bro conversation, and we were having fun.
Yeah, well, and if people just wanted to read the book, they'd just read the book. They wouldn't listen to us talk about it, so.
Right. Plus, there's brilliant audiobooks out there from what I hear and stuff. That's not us. We are the other side of Tolkienhood.
Let me see here. Okay, so we were talking about how the orcs steal horses, and that really upsets the Riders of Rohan.
Yes.
And then we talked about how Saruman has taken wolf riders into his service, and then we made some ElfQuest jokes.
We did.
And then we talked about how he is a wizard, both cunning and Dwemer crafty, which I recall very distinctly.
Yes, because damn it. I want to be Dwemer crafty.
And I think that might be as far as we got.
I think you're right. And I think I need to go look for my phthalo blue.
Oh wait, no, we got farther than that because he's talking about how he took out the men of his own household and they fought the orcs 2 days ago in the Entwood.
You know what? It might be useful if I were to just grab where my thing is. Where's my bookmark? Do not fail, I will not.
Oh, we got all the way there? Okay, cool. All right, well, I know exactly where that is. That's on the next page.
I'm loading you horses. I might die for this, so for the love of God, show the fuck up.
Exactly.
Yeah.
There was great wonder and many dark and doubtful glances among his men when Eomer gave orders that the spare horses were to be lent to the strangers. But only Eothane dared to speak openly.
Shut up.
Maybe... I'm going to give Eothane an annoying voice because I don't like Eothane. It may be well enough for this lord of the race of Gondor, as he claims, he said.
I love it.
But who has heard of a horse of the mark being given to a dwarf?
Tom.
No one, said Gimli, and do not trouble. No one will ever hear of it. I would sooner walk than sit on the back of any beast so great, free or begrudged.
Yeah.
But you must ride now, or you will hinder us, said Aragorn. Come on, bro, you gotta do that. One sec.
Don't crap our style, man.
That's like...
I have phthalo blue.
Yay! It's like if you were trying to get somewhere and you were like, okay, so we're going to drive to the restaurant. Your friend was like, well, I'm going to take my skateboard. Like, dude, it's 5 miles away. By the time you get there, we're going to be done eating.
Yeah.
Like, you have to get in the car.
Do the thing, man.
Get in, loser. We're going hobbit hunting.
Yes.
Come, you shall sit behind me.
Get in, loser. We're chasing orcs. We're taking the corridor.
Exactly. Come, you shall sit behind me, friend Gimli, said Legolas. Then all will be well, and you need neither borrow a horse nor be troubled by one.
Aww.
A great dark grey horse was brought to Aragorn, and he mounted it. Hossifel is his name, said Éomer. May he bear you well and to better fortune than Garulf, his late master.
Poor Garulf.
R.I.P. A smaller and lighter horse, but restive and fiery, was brought to Legolas. Arod was his name. But Legolas asked them to take off saddle and rein. I need them not, he said, and leaped lightly up, and to their wonder Arod was tame and willing beneath him, moving here and there with but a spoken word. Such was the elvish way with all good beasts. Gimli was lifted up behind his friend, and he clung to him, not much more at ease than Sam Gamgee in a boat. Farewell, and may you find what you seek, cried Éomer. Return with what speeds you may, and let our swords hereafter shine together. It's a little homoerotic, but okay.
It is. It's beautiful.
And then I'm not going to be able to read this with a straight face because I didn't see the next line. I will come, said Aragorn.
Yeah, you will.
And I will come too, said Gimli. The matter of the Lady Galadriel lies still between us. I have yet to teach you gentle speech. We shall see, said Éomer. So many things have chanced that to learn the praise of a fair lady under the loving strokes of a dwarf's axe will seem no great wonder. Guys. Whoa, now, this is a family podcast.
Right? Is it?
I mean, no, not at all. Not even remotely.
Family.
Yes, in that sense, yes. In the sense of being appropriate for other people's families, no.
No.
Not at all. No.
Yeah. Fair warning. 25 episodes in.
Yeah. Now that I mention it, yeah. Don't watch with your kids.
Yeah.
With that, they parted. And very swift were the horses of Rohan. When after a little Gimli looked back, the company of Éomer was already small and far away. Aragorn did not look back. He was watching the trail as they sped on their way, bending low with his head beside the neck of Hossifel. Before long they came to the borders of the Entwash, and there they met the other trail of which Éomer had spoken, coming down from the east out of the wold. Aragorn dismounted and surveyed the ground, then leaping back into the saddle he rode away for some distance eastward, keeping to one side and taking care not to override the footprints. Then he again dismounted and examined the ground, going backwards and forwards on foot. I've never thought about the fact that that's what override originally meant.
Oh, it totally does.
Huh. Okay.
Yeah.
There's little to discover, he said when he returned. The main trail is all confused with the passage of the horsemen as they came back. Their outward course must have lain nearer the river. But this eastward trail is fresh and clear. There's no sign there of any feet going the other way back towards Anduin. Now we must ride slower and make sure that no trace or footstep. Branches off on either side. The orcs must have been aware from this point that they were pursued. They may have made some attempt to get their captives away before they were overtaken.
May have failed.
As they rode forward, the day was overcast. Low gray clouds came over the wold. A mist shrouded the sun. Ever nearer the tree-clad slopes of Fangorn loomed, slowly darkling as the sun went west. They saw no sign of any trail to right or left, but here and there they passed single orcs, fallen in their tracks as they ran, with gray feathered arrows sticking in back or throat.
Ew.
Right? Gross. They didn't bother to collect those guys. They just left them there. Like, oh,
they're too far away from the main fight.
I guess, but like, oh, we burned all of them except the ones that we just left to rot by the side of the road.
Right.
I beg your pardon.
It'll be months before anyone's out here again. They'll just be skeletons.
Yeah, because that won't be nearly equally creepy. Like, la la la, taking the kids out in the meadow. We're gonna graze the sheep. Oh, what's that? It's a skeleton with an arrow in its spine. And that's how my kids got nightmares.
It doesn't look human.
I don't know that helps.
It was an alien.
Let's see. At last, as the afternoon was waning, they came to the eaves of the forest, and in an open glade among the first trees, they found the place of the great burning. The ashes were still hot and smoking. Smoking. Sorry.
And hot.
Right? I'm like, I couldn't say the phrase hot and smoking in an appropriate manner. Beside it was a great pile of helms and mail, cloven shields and broken swords, bows and darts, and other gear of war. Upon a stake in the middle was set a great goblin head. Upon its shattered helm, the white badge could still be seen. That is a pretty great fuck you to Saruman.
Right.
Like, they picked one where they could see where his symbol was still visible, and were like, fuck off.
When we first read this, I really enjoyed learning which bits weren't Peter Jackson fabrications, you know?
Mm-hmm.
We were already fans of the movies, but there were bits where you're like, oh yeah, PJ made that up because horror movie background, and yeah, the whole orc's head on the stick. Nope, that's canon.
Yep. Further away, not far from the river, where it came streaming out of the edge of the wood, there was a mound. It was newly raised. The raw earth was covered with fresh-cut turfs. About it were planted 15 spears.
Here's how we bury them, and here's how we bury us.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Aragorn and his companions searched far and wide about the field of battle, but the light faded and evening soon drew down, dim and misty. By nightfall they had discovered no trace of Merry and Pippin. "We can do no more," said Gimli sadly. "We have been set many riddles since we came to Tol Brandir, but this is the hardest to unravel. I would guess that the burned bones of the hobbits are now mingled with the orcs. It'll be hard news for Frodo if he lives to hear it, and hard too for the old hobbit who waits in Rivendell. Elrond was against their coming." "But Gandalf was not," said Legolas. "But Gandalf chose to come himself, and he was the first to be lost," answered Gimli. "His foresight failed him." "The counsel of Gandalf was not founded on foreknowledge of safety for himself or for others," said Aragorn.
Yeah.
"There are some things that it is better to begin than to refuse, even though the end may be dark. But I shall not depart from this place yet. In any case, we must here await the morning light." A little way beyond the battlefield, they made their camp under a spreading tree. It looked like a chestnut, and yet it still bore many broad brown leaves of a former year, like dry hands with long splayed fingers. They rattled mournfully in the night breeze. Gimli shivered. They had brought only one blanket apiece. "Let us light a fire," he said. "I care no longer for the danger. Let the orcs come as thick as summer moths around a candle." "If those unhappy hobbits are astray in the woods, it might draw them hither," said Legolas. "And it might draw other things, neither orc nor hobbit," said Aragorn. "We are near to the mountain marches of the traitor Saruman. Also, we are on the very edge of Fangorn, and it is perilous to touch the trees of that wood, it is said." "But the Rohirrim made a great burning here yesterday," said Gimli, "and they felled trees for the fire, as can be seen. Yet they passed the night after safely here when their labor was ended." "They were many," said Aragorn, "and they do not heed the wrath of Fangorn, for they come here seldom, and they do not go under the trees. But our paths are likely to lead us into the very forest itself. So have a care, cut no living wood." "There is no need," said Gimli. "The riders have left chip and bough enough, and there was dead wood lying in plenty." He went off to gather fuel and busied himself.
That argument that drives me nuts. Like, don't light a fire because blah. Well, what about blah? Well, then blah. Well, blah.
I mean, I can't tell you, because then, let's see, he went off to gather fuel and busied himself with building and kindling a fire, so he didn't listen at all.
No.
But Aragorn sat silent with his back to the
Yeah.
with his back to the great tree, deep in thought. And Legolas stood alone in the open, looking towards the profound shadow of the wood, leaning forward as one who listens to voices calling from a distance. When the dwarf had a small bright blaze going, the three companions drew close to it and sat together, shrouding the light with their hooded forms. Legolas looked up at the boughs of the tree reaching out above them. "Look," he said, "the tree is glad of the fire." It may have been that the dancing shadows tricked their eyes, but certainly to each of the companions the boughs appeared to be bending this way and that so as to come above the flames, while the upper branches were stooping down. The brown leaves now stood out stiff and rubbed together like many cold, cracked hands taking comfort in the warmth. There was a silence, for suddenly the dark and unknown forest, so near at hand, made itself felt as a great brooding presence full of secret purpose. After a while, Legolas spoke again. "Celeborn warned us not to go far into Fangorn," he said. "Do you know why, Aragorn? What are the fables of the forest that Boromir had heard?" "I have heard many tales in Gondor and elsewhere," said Aragorn. "But if it were not for the words of Celeborn, I should deem them only fables that men have made as true knowledge fades. I had thought of asking you what was the truth of the matter. And if an elf of the wood does not know, how shall a man answer?" "You have journeyed further than I," said Legolas. "I have heard nothing of this in my own land, save only songs that tell how the Onodrim, that men call Ents, dwelt there long ago. For Fangorn is old, old even as elves would reckon it." All I can think of is that meme where it's like the scene from the movie, "This forest is old, very old, old as balls."
I'd forgotten that one. I don't think I ever saw that one, but I did see the with the PG rating, it was allowed a single fuck per movie. Where would you have put it? And one of the options was this old as fuck. "You shall not fucking pass" was another one.
See, I think if I was going to put it anywhere in the battle with the, oh my god, my brain is going blank.
Balrog?
Thank you, Balrog. I would put it right when they realize it's a Balrog. And Gandalf has that moment of like, I would put the fuck.
Very Henry Cavill kind of fuck too. Like,
yeah, exactly. Did I tell you I binge watched that whole series?
No, what did you think?
It was entertaining. Like, I can't say that I can't say I learned any deep lessons other than never claim the law of surprise. What the hell is wrong with you? But but I had fun.
So for my money, if to me the whole thing felt as though they had been aiming at Game of Thrones and had achieved Xena Warrior Princess. Like,
yeah, kind of.
Like the cheesiness and the silliness, and but the budget's bigger and it's trying to have all this gravitas. But I mean, like, our warrior woman's death is to fall gently out a window and go crunch. Like, it's just.
Well, but then there's that scene later where someone is like right next to the spot where she lands, and you're just like, what the hell? I think it's Geralt. I think he's right there, and he like hears the thud and looks over and just is like,
Ugh.
Yeah.
Yeah, there were the times that the show definitely wanted me to cry, I was laughing. And then there were times when other weird shit was happening, like the I wish your head would explode. And I was like, really? Really? We're having a Sam Raimi moment now?
Oh man. Yeah,
precious, but I could not take it seriously.
I don't think you were meant to. It doesn't take itself seriously.
I wondered at times. Oh, and I called every plot twist within the first 5 minutes of the episode.
Oh, sure.
When the dude was like, I want to join your dragon hunt, I was like, look at his vest. He's a dragon.
I wasn't paying that much attention to even call them. I'm sure I could have, but
Right.
I was just kind of like, because Kit and I watched it in one day.
Wow.
So we were just like sort of zoned out and tuning in and out as the baby was crying and whatever. And it was just like, but it was fun. I have a whole rant about how like not every single female character's motivation has to be that she wants to be a mom, and that made no sense at all for Yennefer's character whatsoever.
Yeah.
Like she doesn't hesitate when he's when she's going through the transformation. He's like, "Yeah, I'm going to take your uterus." She's like, "Yeah, that's fine," which is what I would have said also.
Right.
Although I would have asked for anesthetic because I'm not an idiot. But that's another story. But like, she doesn't. There's no reason why she would regret that.
No, her motives didn't, and she didn't seem to think beyond. Ooh, I want a baby, and she ought to have been the smart character who was like, and once I have a baby, what am I going to continue to do this life of travel? Am I planning a house? Am I gonna like school, medical expenses? Like, what the fuck are you planning to do with the kid?
Yeah, see, and I can kind of see how that's in character for her to just not really think about like how am I gonna do it, but
yeah.
I was just like, there's no like, you're literally magic and you have influenced kings and you've done all this stuff and you can basically do whatever you want. Like there's no reason why your grand motivation for everything forever is that you want a baby.
Yeah. And a baby of her own, mind you, because it would have actually been an interesting plot twist if she'd been like, actually, I feel like nurturing something and found an orphan. Or
found an orphan who was mistreated the way she had been, who was also magical, and started her own magic school. And then her conflict with the Brotherhood of Sorcerers could have been that she wanted to start a magic school that didn't mistreat its students so badly.
Right? Oh, God, that would have been so much more interesting.
Right.
And yeah, I just, yeah. It as long as you treat it like Xena or Hercules, it's fantastically entertaining. And as soon as you start to question it like it's legit, you have problems.
Also, speaking of things that you shouldn't question, but I did, why on earth would you wear a dress made out of rope to a battle? Like, that dress is going to get caught on everything.
Her entire wardrobe drove me nuts. It was as bad as watching Natalie Portman in episodes 1 through 3, where you're like, actually episode 1 was okay, but 2 and 3, her outfits were insane and they didn't have anything to do with what was actually going on. And you're like, why?
Just, why would you ever wear a dress made out of loops of rope? Like, not even just to a battle, anywhere. Like, I would get that shit caught on a doorknob and knock my front teeth out.
I would chafe. You'd end up with blisters everywhere.
Well, there's like an underdress underneath. The rope's not touching her skin.
Well, I remember that, like, yeah. It's no.
Yeah.
No. Speaking of Kit, I tried making cream puffs this morning and they were all right, but they were not Wheaton cream puffs. So help me remember, I want to get the old recipe if at all possible.
I assure you that I will probably not remember, but I'll try.
I won't either, but I'll try too. For both trying, we can fail twice as hard. Whee!
I saw a thing today that was like a little Microsoft pop-up screenshot that said, task failed successfully. And I was like, well, that's a mood.
Yes.
Yes. Okay. Anyway, back to the forest, which is super old. Wow, we got off track, but it was fun.
So old. Old as balls.
Old as balls. Yes, it is old, said Aragorn. As old as the forest by the Barrow Downs, and it is far greater. Elrond says that the two were akin, the last strongholds of the mighty woods of the elder days, in which the firstborn roamed while men still slept. Yet Fangorn holds some secret of its own. What it is, I do not know.
It's a secret.
Yeah, you just said it's a secret, so. And I do not wish to know, said Gimli. Let nothing that dwells in Fangorn be troubled on my account. Gimli is a mood at almost all times, and that's one where it's like, oh, a big scary wood with a lot of secrets? Yeah, don't care. I'm not gonna bug anything in there. I'm just gonna go back to what I was doing.
Not my business. You go right ahead. You do you, big scary forest.
Exactly. They now drew lots for the watches, and the lot for the first watch fell to Gimli. The others lay down. Almost at once, sleep laid hold on them, because they haven't slept in like 3 days.
Right.
Gimli, said Aragorn drowsily, remember, it is perilous to cut bough or twig from a living tree in Fangorn. But do not stray far in search of dead wood. Let the fire die, rather, and call me at need. With that, he fell asleep. Legolas already lay motionless, his fair hands folded upon his breast.
His eyes
unclosed. Oh wow, yeah. Sorry, I got distracted by what's on the next page. But yeah, his eyes unclosed.
Yeah.
Blending living night and deep dream, as is the way with elves. My God, that's creepy.
Undead!
Seriously. So your friend's like, yeah, okay, good night. And you're like, yeah, good night. And then you turn around and he's going like this.
Creepy.
4 hours.
Yep.
Anyway.
Yeah.
Don't like it.
I hear elves also require blood in their diet for, the hemoglobin.
Globin, I think, yeah.
Globin. Yeah, I'm sorry. It's the Pratchett hemogoblins. Messed up.
Yeah, understand.
Thank you.
Let's see. Okay. So Legolas was creepy sleeping.
Yep.
Gimli sat hunched by the fire, running his thumb thoughtfully along the edge of his axe. The tree rustled. There was no other sound. Suddenly, Gimli looked up, and there, just on the edge of the firelight, stood an old, bent man, leaning on his staff and wrapped in a great cloak. His wide-brimmed hat was pulled down over his eyes. Gimli sprang up, too amazed for the moment to cry out, though at once the thought flashed into his mind that Saruman had caught them. Both Aragorn and Legolas, roused by his sudden movement, sat up and stared. The old man did not speak or make a sign. Well, father, what can we do for you? Said Aragorn, leaping to his feet. Come and be warm if you are cold. He strode forward, but the old man was gone. There was no trace of him to be found near at hand, and they did not dare to wander far. The moon had set, and the night was very dark. Suddenly, Legolas gave a cry. The horses! The horses! The horses were gone. They had dragged their pickets and disappeared. For some time, the 3 companions stood still and silent, troubled by this new stroke of ill fortune. They were under the eaves of Fangorn, and endless leagues.
If they had actually kept this in the movie, that would have been a moment for, well, fuck.
They were under the eaves of Fangorn, and endless leagues lay between them and the men of Rohan, their only friends in this wide and dangerous land. Who, by the way, are never going to forgive them for losing the fucking horses, so they're not actually friends anymore.
Not friends right now.
As they stood, it seemed to them that they heard, far off in the night, the sound of horses whinnying and neighing. Then all was quiet again, except for the cold rustle of the wind. Well, they are gone, said Aragorn at last. We cannot find them or catch them, so that if they do not return of their own will, we must do without. We started on our feet, and we have those still. Feet, said Gimli.
Should have occurred to me that this was Tolkien going, they need to get into the forest. The horses won't be useful in the forest. What shall I do with the horses? Anyway,
Deus Ex Gandalf.
Yeah.
Let's see. Feet, said Gimli, but we cannot eat them as well as walk on them. He threw some fuel on the fire and slumped down beside it. Is he suggesting he would have eaten the horses? I think he is.
Hearing.
Like,
wow, that would have gotten you in trouble with Hammer.
Yeah. Only a few hours ago you were unwilling to sit on a horse of Rohan, laughed Legolas. You will make a rider yet. It seems unlikely that I shall have the chance, said Gimli. If you wish to know what I think, he began again after a while. I like how they're just like standing there and Gimli's sulking by the fire, and then eventually he's like, you know what I think? I think it was Saruman. Who else? Remember the words of Éomer. He walks about like an old man, hooded and cloaked. Those were the words. He's gone off with our horses. Or scared them away. And here we are. There's more trouble coming to us, mark my words. I mark them, said Aragorn. But I marked also that this old man had a hat and not a hood. He was dressed slightly differently, therefore he can't be the same guy.
Definitely not.
Still, I do not doubt that you guess right, and that we are in peril here by night or day. Yet in the meantime, there is nothing we can do but rest while we may. I will watch for a while now, Gimli. I have more need of thought than of sleep.
Yeah,
The
you
night passed. The night passed slowly. Legolas followed Aragorn, and Gimli followed Legolas, and their watches wore away. But nothing happened. The old man did not appear again, and the horses did not return. Chapter 3. The Uruk-hai. Pa-pa-pom.
We go back.
Now we go back. Oh, 1 second. All right. Pippin lay in a dark and troubled dream. It seemed that he could hear his own small voice echoing in black tunnels, calling, Frodo, Frodo! But instead of Frodo, hundreds of hideous orc faces grinned at him out of the shadows. Hundreds of hideous arms grasped at him from every side. Where was Merry? He woke. Cold air blew on his face. He was lying on his back. Evening was coming, and the sky above was growing dim. He turned and found that the dream was little worse than the waking. His wrists, legs, and ankles were tied with cords. Beside him Merry lay, white-faced, with a dirty rag bound across his brows. All about them sat or stood a great company of orcs. Slowly, in Pippin's aching head, memory pieced itself together and became separated from dream shadows. Of course, he and Merry had run off into the woods. What had come over them? Why had they dashed off like that, taking no notice of old Strider? They had run a long way shouting. He could not remember how far or how long. And then suddenly they had crashed right into a group of orcs. They were standing listening, and they did not appear to see Merry and Pippin until they were almost in their arms. Then they yelled, and dozens of other goblins had sprung out of the trees. Merry and he had drawn their swords, but the orcs did not wish to fight, and had tried only to lay hold of them, even when Merry had cut off several of their arms and hands. Good old Merry. Then Boromir had come leaping through the trees. He had made them fight. He slew many of them, and the rest fled. But they had not gone far on the way back when they were attacked again by 100 orcs at least, some of them very large, and they shot a rain of arrows, always at Boromir. Boromir had blown his great horn till the woods rang, and at first the orcs had been dismayed and had drawn back, but when no answer came but echoes, they had attacked more fiercely than ever. Pippin did not remember much more. His last memory was of Boromir leaning against a tree, plucking out an arrow. Then darkness fell suddenly. I suppose I was knocked on the head, he said to himself. I wonder if poor Merry is much hurt. What has happened to Boromir? Why didn't the orcs kill us? Where are we and where are we going? He could not answer the questions. He felt cold and sick. I wish Gandalf had never persuaded Elrond to let us come, he thought. What good have I been? Just a nuisance, a passenger, a piece of luggage. And now I've been stolen and I am just a piece of luggage for the orcs. I hope Strider or someone will come and claim us. But ought I to hope for it? Won't that throw out all the plans? Oh, I wish I could get free. He struggled a little, quite uselessly. One of the orcs sitting near laughed and said something to a companion in their abominable tongue. Rest while you can, little fool, he said then to Pippin in the common speech, which he made almost as hideous as his own language. Rest while you can. We'll find a use for your legs before long. You'll wish you had got none before we get home. If I had my way, you'd wish you were dead now, said the other. I'd make you squeak, you miserable rat. He stooped over Pippin, bringing his yellow fangs close to his face. He had a black knife with a long, jagged blade in his hand. Lie quiet, or I'll tickle you with this, he hissed. Don't draw attention to yourself, or I may forget my orders. Curse the Isengarders. Hugluk bagronksha pushdug salamangla bubush sky. He passed into a long, angry speech in his own tongue that slowly died away into muttering and snarling. Terrified, Pippin lay still, though the pain at his wrists and ankles was growing and the stones beneath him were boring into his back. To take his mind off himself, he listened intently to all that he could hear. There were many voices round about, and though orc speech sounded at all times full of hate and anger, it seemed plain that something like a quarrel had begun and was getting hotter. To Pippin's surprise, he found that much of the talk was intelligible. Many of the orcs were using ordinary language. Apparently, the members of 2 or 3 quite different tribes were present, and they could not understand one another's orc speech. There was an angry debate concerning what they were to do now, which way they were to take, and what should be done with the prisoners. There's no time to kill them properly, said one. No time for play on this trip. That can't be helped, said another. But why not kill them quick? Kill them now. They're a cursed nuisance, and we're in a hurry. Evening's coming on. We ought to get a move on. Orders, said a third voice in a deep growl. Kill all, but not the halflings. They are to be brought back alive as quickly as possible. That's my orders. What are they wanted for? Asked several voices. Why alive? Do they give good sport? I don't know why the orcs are Valley Girls now. I've run out of potential accents, so that's what you get.
That was fantastic. I love it.
No. I heard that one of them has got something that's wanted for the war. Some elvish plot or other. Anyway, they'll both be questioned. Is that all you know? Why don't we search them and find out? We might find something we could use ourselves. That is a very interesting remark, sneered a voice, softer than the others, but more evil. I may have to report that. The prisoners are not to be searched or plundered. Those are my orders. And mine, too, said the deep voice. Alive and as captured, no spoiling. That's my orders. Not our orders, said one of the earlier voices. We've come all the way from the mines to kill and avenge our folk. I wish to kill and then go back north. Then you can wish again, said the growling voice. I am Ugluk. I command. I returned to Isengard by the shortest road. Is Saruman the master or the Great Eye? Said the evil voice. We should go back at once to Logburs. If we could cross the great river, we might, said another voice. There are not enough of us to venture down to the bridges. I came across, said the evil voice. A winged Nazgul awaits us northward on the east bank. Maybe. Then you'll fly off with our prisoners and get all the pay and praise in Logburs and leave us to foot it as best we can through the horse country. No, we must stick together. These lands are dangerous, full of foul rebels and brigands. I love that they're like, these lands are full of brigands. Like, you guys are the brigands.
Right?
It's you.
Also, foul
You're the
rebels.
baddies.
Rebels against what? Rebels against Sauron?
Yeah, I think so. Or Sourman. It's hard to say who's talking here. They don't say if it's a Moria orc or a Mordor orc or a Orthanc orc. There's a lot of places they could be from.
Indeed. And just a moment of recognizing the political, very, very gentle political commentary that whoever isn't on my side must be a filthy rebel.
Mm-hmm. Indeed. Aye, we must stick together, growled Ugluk. I don't trust you, little swine. You've no guts outside your own styes, but for us, you'd all have run away. We are the fighting Uruk-hai. We slew the great warrior. We took the prisoners. We are the servants of Saruman the Wise, the White Hand, the hand that gives us man's flesh to eat. We came out of Isengard and led you here, and we shall lead you back by the way we choose. I am Ugluk. I have spoken.
I have spoken!
You have spoken more than enough, Ugluk, sneered the evil voice. I wonder how they would like it in Lugburs. They might think that Ugluk's shoulders needed relieving of a swollen head. They might ask where his strange ideas came from. Did they come from Saruman, perhaps? Who does he think he is, setting up on his own with his filthy white badges? They might agree with me, with Grishnak, their trusted messenger. And I, Grishnak, say this. Saruman is a fool, and a dirty, treacherous fool, with the great eyes on him. Swine, is it? How do you folk like being called swine? By the muckrakers of a dirty little wizard. It's orc flesh they eat, I'll warrant. Many loud yells and orc speech answered him, and the ringing clash of weapons being drawn. Cautiously, Pippin rolled over, hoping to see what would happen. His guards had gone to join in the fray. In the twilight, he saw a large black orc, probably Ugluk, standing facing Grishnak, a short, crook-legged creature, very broad and with long arms that hung almost to the ground. Round them were many smaller goblins. Pippin supposed that these were the ones from the north. They had drawn their knives and swords, but hesitated to attack Ugluk. Ugluk shouted, and a number of other orcs of nearly his own size ran up. Then, without warning, Ugluk sprang forwards, and with 2 swift strokes swept the heads off 2 of his opponents. Grishnak stepped aside and vanished into the shadows. The others gave way, and one stepped backwards and fell over Mary's prostrate form with a curse. Yet that probably saved his life, for Ugluk's followers leaped over him and cut down another with their broad-bladed swords. It was the yellow-fanged guard. His body fell right on top of Pippin, still clutching its long, saw-edged knife. Put up your weapons, shouted Ugluk, and let's have no more nonsense. We go straight west from here and down the stair. From there straight to the downs and then along the river to the forest, and we march day and night. That clear? Now, thought Pippin, if only it takes that ugly fellow a little while to get his troop under control. I've got a chance. A gleam of hope had come to him. The edge of the black knife had snicked his arm, then slid down to his wrist. He felt the blood trickling onto his hand, but he also felt the cold touch of steel against his skin. The orcs were getting ready to march again. But some of the northerners were still unwilling, and the Isengarders slew 2 more before the rest were cowed. There was much cursing and confusion. For the moment, Pippin was unwatched. His legs were securely bound, but his arms were only tied about the wrists, and his hands were in front of them. He could move them both together, though the bonds were cruelly tight. He pushed the dead orc to one side, then hardly daring to breathe, he drew the knot of the wrist cord up and down against the blade of the knife. It was sharp, and the dead hand held it fast. The cord was cut. Quickly, Pippin took it in his fingers and knotted it again into a loose bracelet of 2 loops and slipped it over his hands. Then he lay very still. Pick up those prisoners, shouted Ugluk. Don't play any tricks with them. If they are not alive when we get back, someone else will die too. An orc seized Pippin like a sack, put its head between his tied hands, grabbed his arms, and dragged them down until Pippin's face was crushed against its neck. Then it jolted off with him. Another treated Merry in the same way. The orc's claw-like hand gripped Pippin's arms like iron. The nails bit into him. He shut his eyes and slipped back into evil dreams. Suddenly, he was thrown onto the stony floor again. It was early night, but the slim moon was already falling westward. They were on the edge of a cliff that seemed to look out over a sea of pale mist. There was a sound of water falling nearby. The scouts have come back at last, said an orc close at hand. Well, what did you discover? Growled the voice of Ugluk. Only a single horseman, and he made off westwards. All's clear now. Now, I dare say. But how long? You fools! You should have shot him. He'll raise the alarm, and the cursed horse breeders will hear of us by morning. Now we'll have to leg it double quick. A shadow bent over Pippin. It was Ugluk. Sit up, said the orc. My lads are tired of lugging you about. We've got to climb down, and you must use your legs. Be helpful now. No crying out, no trying to escape. We have ways of paying for tricks that you won't like, though they won't spoil your usefulness for the master. He cut the thongs round Pippin's legs and ankles, picked him up by his hair, and stood him on his feet. Pippin fell down, and Ugluk dragged him up by his hair again. Several orcs laughed. Ugluk thrust a flask between his teeth and poured some burning liquid down his throat. He felt a hot, fierce glow flow through him. The pain in his legs and ankles vanished. He could stand. Now for the other, said Ugluk. Pippin saw him go to Merry, who was laying close by, and kick him. Merry groaned. Seizing him roughly, Ugluk pulled him into a sitting position and tore the bandage off his head. Then he smeared the wound with some dark stuff out of a small wooden box. Merry cried out and struggled wildly. The orcs clapped and hooted. Can't take his medicine, they jeered. Doesn't know what's good for him. Hey, we shall have some fun later. But at the moment, Ugluk was not engaged in sport. He needed speed and had to humor unwilling followers. He was healing Merry in orc fashion, and his treatment worked swiftly. When he had forced a drink from his flask down the hobbit's throat, cut his leg bonds, and dragged him to his feet, Merry stood up, looking pale, but grim and defiant, and very much alive. The gash in his forehead gave him no more trouble, but he bore a brown scar to the end of his days. Man, I wish that had been in the movie.
Right?
That's one thing that I think would have been really cool, is to have some of those like scars and signs of what they've been through.
Yeah. Sam's supposed to have a scar as well on his forehead.
Mm-hmm. Hello, Pippin. Whoa, that accent came out way wrong. I don't know if I can do his accent today, but we'll try.
That's all good.
Hello, Pippin, he said. So you've come on this little expedition too? Where do we get bed and breakfast? Now then, said Ugluk, none of that. Hold your tongues. No talk to one another. Any trouble will be reported at the other end, and he'll know how to pay you. You'll get bed and breakfast all right. More than you can stomach.
Hooray! Oh, wait.
Right. Wait, that's... I don't think you mean actual bed and breakfast, sir.
I don't think those words mean what you think they mean.
The orc band began to descend a narrow ravine leading down into the misty plain below. Merry and Pippin, separated by a dozen orcs or more, climbed down with them. At the bottom they stepped onto grass, and the hearts of the hobbits rose. Now straight on, shouted Ugluk, west and a little north. Follow Lugdush. But what are we going to do at sunrise? Said some of the northerners.
Yes, awesome.
Go on running, said Ugluk. What do you think? Sit down there on the grass and wait for the horse masters to join the picnic? He uses a different word, but as we're changing some of the problematic things about the orcs, I'm just gonna say horse masters. But we can't run in the sunlight. You'll run with me behind you, said Ugluk. Run, or you'll never see your beloved holes again. By the white hand, what's the use of sending out mountain maggots on a trip only half trained? Run, curse you! Run while night lasts. The annoyance of sergeants everywhere. Why did they send me these assholes without training?
These fucking babies need their noses wiped. Ugh.
Then the whole company began to run with the long loping strides of the orcs. They kept no order, thrusting, jostling, and cursing, yet their speed was very great. Each hobbit had a guard of 3. Pippin was far back in the line. He wondered how long he would be able to go on at this pace. He had had no food since the morning. One of his guards had a whip. But at present the orc liquor was still hot in him. His wits, too, were wide awake. Every now and then there came into his mind unbidden a vision of the keen face of Strider bending over a dark trail and running behind. But what could even a ranger see except a confused trail of orc feet? His own little prince and Mary's were overwhelmed by the trampling of the iron-shod shoes before them and behind them and about them. They had gone only a mile or so from the cliff when the land sloped down into a wide, shallow depression where the ground was soft and wet. Mist lay there, pale glimmering in the last rays of the sickle moon. The dark shapes of the orcs in front grew dim and then were swallowed up. "Aye, steady now," shouted Ugluk from the rear. A sudden thought leaped into Pippin's mind, and he acted on it at once. He swerved aside to the right and dived out of the reach of his clutching guard, head first into the mist. He landed sprawling on the grass. "Halt!" yelled Ugluk. There was, for a moment, turmoil and confusion. Pippin sprang up and ran, but the orcs were after him. Some suddenly loomed up right in front of him. "No hope of escape," thought Pippin, "but there is a hope that I have left some of my own marks unspoilt on the wet ground." He groped with his 2 tied hands at his throat and unclasped the brooch of his cloak. Just as long arms and hard claws seized him, he let it fall. "There I suppose it will lie until the end of time," he thought. "I don't know why I did it. If the others have escaped, they've probably all gone with Frodo." A whip thong curled round his legs, and he stifled a cry. "Enough," shouted Ugluk, running up. "He's still got to run a long way yet. Make 'em both run. Just use the whip as a reminder." "But that's not all," he snarled, turning to Pippin. "I shan't forget. Payment is only put off. Leg it." And I think that is a good spot to stop for today. We have a few minutes left, but the next section's pretty long.
Right. Oh, those poor darling hobbits.
Yeah, they're having a rough time.
Tom Monahan said once that he thought that they didn't take very much psychological damage because they weren't really aware of what was happening to them or what was going to happen to them. But in the book, like with everything else, they're a lot more badass and they know exactly where they're going happening.
Yeah, I think in the book there's not a lot of... I mean, I don't remember as much about how this like affects them going forward in the book, but I think there's sort of a stiff upper lip thing going on. Like, when do we get bed and breakfast? Like, you know,
Nice.
Try to escape even if it kills you, kind of a
very
thing,
British.
So.
Like
very British.
Carrying on, doing our thing. We gonna die.
Right. PTSD? What PTSD? Stiff upper lip, that's what we need.
Right. And when they do...
Wait, why the upper lip? Surely the lower lip is what you would want to try and keep stiff if you're trying not to cry.
Stiff upper lip. Maybe it has to do with mustaches. Maybe your whole face trembles and you can really tell with a mustache that the upper lip is how it's behaving.
I guess so. I know a lot of people with mustaches. I should ask them.
Right. Oh, I had never thought about override as a tracking thing. That's so freaking awesome.
Right?
I feel like there's other words like that I've learned recently where it's like, oh, the origin was such and such, but I can't think of them right now. And anyway, I'm hungry for lunch. I don't know about you.
Yeah, and I'm gonna go and do some other stuff. So, I will see you on Wednesday night.
Wednesday night. Yeah, I won't forget. Last Wednesday was kind of heavy. But I don't know why. All right.
All right.
Cuidado.
Adios.